All right, we're just giving everybody a few moments to file in.
Yep, settle in, get comfy. Grab your favorite drink. Yeah. Come in from the beautiful weather outside.
Ooh, that's kind of mean.
Or just watch us on your
I was just gonna say, or they'll just catch us later.
Yeah. Right, we have a few watchers now.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Reference Roundtable today. We are from the library's reference department, and this is our show where we discuss books and other related library topics. I am Sarah, and with me today is Jessie, Lacey, and Kelsey. And if you'd like to go back and watch our previous episodes, you can find those here on our Facebook page. We've already discussed a wide variety of topics like graphic novels, true crime, and even how we came to work here at the library. On Tuesday this week, we talked about Agatha Christie, just a few of her many books, and some amazing facts about her life. And today, we're going to be sharing a variety of books that have personally changed our lives. So, what qualifies a book as life-changing? As we were discussing which books we were going to talk about, we also shared our thoughts on how we chose them. So a few of the things that we mentioned were books that we'd read again, especially if that's something rare, something that got us through a difficult time in our lives, books that furthered an interest in a certain subject, renewed a love for reading, or really made us think about things in a new perspective. We would love for you all to share the books that have changed your lives. So please go ahead and leave us a comment if you're watching this now, or even later if you watch it. We'd love to see those. So I'm going to start with one of the first books I chose, and that is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. And this book, I just remember this was one of the first books I read that really stuck with me. And it's definitely one I've reread, and I don't do that a lot. So I was just... It almost seemed like a magical book when I read it. I don't know if it was because, it's about a teenage boy writing to someone. We don't even know who he's writing to. It's more of like journal entries that he's writing to someone. And he's an awkward teenager. He's a wallflower, obviously. He has a hard time making friends. And I think at some, on some levels I could relate to that as being pretty introverted, and it was just a cool book too. They talked about mixtapes and music, and I've always loved music, so I related to that too. So the ending was pretty shocking and emotional, and so that's one of those books where I want to go back where I didn't see this coming, so I like to go back and read again to see if there's clues that I missed. So that's my first one. I still love it. The movie was
That's a good one
too. Yeah.
I haven't read that one. It's on my... I actually own that one. I haven't read it yet.
Oh yeah. Yep, it's a good one. All right.
Okay, well, I'm next. And I just wanted to say this right now. I hated this exercise. This was so hard for me to do, and it broke my brain a little bit. So I wanted to get that out of the way. But this first title was definitely one that I wanted to put on the list. And it's kind of a good segue from what Sarah was talking about, Perks of Being a Wallflower. And the one that I wanted to first talk about is called Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. And basically, if the book had a tagline, it would be that there's zero correlation between being the best talker and having the best ideas. So when I read this book for the first time, I felt seen, like in a real way, because it talks about how society dramatically undervalues introverts and shows how much we lose as a community in doing so. I mean, at least 1/3 of the population that we know are introverts. And we are the ones that prefer listening to speaking. We are innovators, and we create, and we pretty much dislike self-promotion. But what Cain has done is that she has taken, she's charted the rise of the extrovert ideal throughout the 20th century And then she explores how it's come to permeate our culture. And she actually gives introverts a voice, and I felt very understood. And I felt very, like I said, seen about valuing what an introvert can bring to society, and also valuing myself for not having extrovert tendencies. So it was pretty impactful for me.
That's a deep one.
Yeah. It sounds really good.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wow.
It is. It's definitely. Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm bringing this one up because Claire, you know what's up. The Odd Thomas books.
Oh, yeah.
Those are great.
Oh, there it is. One of my favorite characters ever penned. So Claire, I am definitely on the Odd Thomas boat with you.
I haven't read those, but that sounds really good.
Yeah.
I think we all need a sign that says that. In our
I was going to
kitchens.
say,
I
can
love
do that
it.
Yes,
sign.
absolutely.
I love it.
I mean, it's been on my list, but like, I
We'll
didn't
put
know
it
if
in
he
the
was
break
talking
room.
about cake, and I'm like, well, I'm probably gonna have to read that now.
Right? My thoughts exactly.
Are you like my
Yeah.
spirit character? Who knows?
Yeah. Odd Thomas
That's
is
awesome.
a beautiful, beautiful soul.
Well, I'm just here to just make us take a 180. One of the first books that popped into my head was the ever classic Where the Sidewalk Ends by the great late
Good choice.
Shel Silverstein. I always loved poetry. I read it even to this day, all kinds, serious, funny, sad, happy, just everything I can kind of get my hands on. I love it. I've read it ever since then. I was young, but of course, when I was young, I liked the funny stuff that made me smile, that made me feel good. I'm sure you guys probably remember the name Jack Perletsky. You guys remember him?
Mhm.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Be glad your nose is on your face. Your nose would be a source of dread were it attached to top your head. It soon would drive you to despair, forever tickled by your hair. I mean, how can you not read that and just not want to smile? These books, not only did they make me like laugh and smile, but they really taught me a lot. They're kids' poems. They're not, they're not full of 8-syllable words, but they teach you a lot. As crazy as that is to say, you really learn a lot through his poems. The shortest ones to the longest ones, they teach you joy, they teach you kindness, they teach you patience, they teach you to just kind of love life. One of my favorite ones in here is Sick. I cannot go to school today, said little Peggy Ann McKay. I have the measles and the mumps, a gash, a rash, and purple bumps. My mouth is wet, my throat is dry. I'm going blind in my right eye. I mean, what kid cannot read that and just not love it?
Relate to that. Yeah.
And he does drawings with all of his poems. I mean, look at that poor guy here. I mean, what kid wouldn't love to open that up and read that? So I'm all about the poetry and getting kids into it early.
Speaking of which, since we've had to become impromptu homeschoolers here, my one goal for my son was to learn one poem. I mean, however long it takes. And he chose one of the poems out of that book. It was about I forget what it's called, but there's a snail in his nose. So don't pick your nose or you'll get your finger bit off, that sort of thing. He thought it was the funniest thing in the entire book. So.
And then there was a question for you, Jessie.
Yes.
It was, what was that?
Yes, it was.
Title?
It's Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. And it's by Susan Cain, Cain.
Yep.
And
Claire's on top of it. Yeah.
And then I'm gonna flip us around again, because when we first started talking about this, my instant reaction was I have to talk about Nancy Drew. So I'm kind of cheating and I'm doing a series for my first one. But I couldn't pick a favorite. I mean,
There's not cheating.
there's
No,
it's not
so
cheating.
many Nancy Drew books, and there's been so many spin-offs. But for me, Nancy Drew by Carolyn King was life-changing. You know, she's just this strong female character who uses her wits to, you know, solve these crimes, but yet, you know, she's a good friend, like, you know, she's a daughter. Like, I, you know, read her first, you know, like the original hardcover ones, you know, like as a kid, you know, so kind of, I mean, obviously I was younger than Nancy Drew was as a character, but just, I found so much to relate to there. But, you know, she's this cultural icon, you know, like she was originally envisioned as the female counterpart to the Hardy Boys, but, you know, since then she's this cultural icon, you know, and she really, like, those books really just fostered my love for puzzles of any kind. I mean, we all know I love a good jigsaw puzzle, but just, I love using my brain to be able to try to just, like, figure out, like, either how something works or to, like, you know, solve a mini mystery. I mean, not anything, like, super crazy life-changing, but, you know. But out of the original stories, I have a lot of, you know, the original hardcovers, but probably my 3 favorites, if I had to pick them, would be The Hidden Staircase, The Secret in the Old Attic, and The Clue of the Velvet Mask. And once I was finished with those, I was that kid that read every single one on the shelf at the public library. They had the good old paperbacks of the Nancy Drew Files, which was the first spin-off series that came out in the mid-'80s, where they're kind of, you know, just these like thin paperbacks that we had on like the spinners that you could spin around at the library. But they really like kind of emphasized the adventure and kind of the more like malice, and, you know, they kind of portrayed her a little older, so a little bit more like romance there, kind of more than the original. The kind of, you know, the books evolved with the times, but I took them and read them during every break that I got on my summer jobs, you know, working at the ice cream shop. So I think I read practically all 124 of them. You know, I was that teen that I was like, this is going to be my mission. I'm going to read them all. So they're just kind of that like nostalgic favorite that like now would be interesting to go back and reread them to see if I'd still have the same feeling about them. But they change, you know, I just love it. I just love Nancy Drew. I can't not.
Confession time. I've never read a Nancy Drew novel. I've never read one.
No,
That's okay.
I haven't either.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine.
My grandma bought me a lot of those growing up, so I definitely.
Oh,
read
that's
them.
sweet.
But I like to, as soon as I said it, you guys were just.
We have a couple.
Yeah, my mom loved Nancy.
Yeah, no,
Drew.
I was like, oh, that makes
Speaking
sense.
of
Yeah,
my
that makes
mom, she asked us.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm going to bring her into the
comment.
conversation.
So, is it okay to like Dr. Seuss as well, coming from a
of course.
preschool teacher? Everyone loves Dr.
Always.
Seuss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite Dr.
Absolutely.
Seuss was Pocket in My Wallet, I think was.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, that was a cute one. Yeah.
I loved that one.
Also, your mom as well
Yay!
loves Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys.
You better watch out, Sarah. Maybe that for your birthday, she's gonna get you some Nancy Drews.
I don't know. I think
Some
she
Nancy
tried.
Drew.
It was one of those things like, if my mom liked Nancy Drew, I better find something else to like.
Yeah.
Well, your mom and I can share books then.
There you go. Okay,
Yeah.
taking it in a
Claire
completely.
also mentioned again that Claire mentioned that she's a note taker. Every episode, I'm over here making notes, so I'm right there with you. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna take it in another direction again. So, the second book I'm going to talk about is The Secret, and it's by Rhonda Byrne. And I kind of have a story about this one because I heard about this book and it was a huge Oprah craze and everything. And usually those books, I'm like, nope. And I don't even try it because too much hype is usually a disappointment. So fast forward, and time in my life when I was traveling and going to a lot of concerts with my cousin Nikki and some of our other friends. We went to a concert in St. Louis, and the opener was a hip hop artist named Mod Sun. And we kind of judged him at first, but then we started to really like him. And we started to see some of his shows, listen to his music, and he always talked about this book, like read The Secret. And he was always so happy and like vibrant, and all of his songs were about happy things. And we just loved him. And so I'm like, there's got to be something to this book if he's reading it. So picked it up and read it. And basically it's about the law of attraction, which has been around forever. So, you know, positive thoughts will bring you positive things. And basically you can manifest things in your life. And sadly, I've not manifested my mansion or a winning lottery ticket yet. But I like to read this book like once a year, once every couple of years or so, just because it does put me in a positive mindset. I mean, it's so obvious once you read it and it clicks with you that, man, if I just keep having negative thoughts all day long, yeah, I'm going to feel bad and down all day. And if I'm being optimistic and thinking positive, then I'm going to feel better all day. And Maud's son he's getting up. I mean, he's not super famous anymore, but he's made his way to Los Angeles and has had some songs with famous people.
I don't know how I know this, but I do. But Chris Pratt talks about that book a lot too.
Oh yeah,
and he's some people know who he is.
Yeah,
you know.
So yeah, I can't say I ascribe to everything, but I do enjoy reading it because it puts me in a good mindset. I'll say that.
Cool.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Okay, so my next one, yes, it does. Adam, it sounds like stoicism was his comment. One of my all-time faves is Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Here we go again. Richard Armitage narrates Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and I have that on my Audible subscription.
I think you'd really like Meditations, Sarah. I think you'd.
Oh,
I think that'd be right up your alley.
Yeah, I do.
It sounds like it.
I do too. Yeah. Okay, so my next one is, honestly, it's really cliche. And I don't necessarily know if I'd say it's changed my life, but it has informed a lot of my decision making. And it is The 5 Love Languages: How to Express Heartfelt Commitment to Your Mate. And it's by Gary Chapman. And it's one of those books that people get, when they get married, and people, you need to read this, you need to read this. And I did. And again, I wouldn't say it changed my life, but there are definitely times where I have to stop and say, okay, I need to apply this from this book. And basically what it is that through his work in counseling, the author Chapman has discerned 5 love languages, which are like the way somebody both gives and receives love, like words of affirmation, I love you, physical touch, kissing or holding hands, receiving gifts, quality time together, and then there's acts of service. My love language is very different from my husband's. I am very much an act of service. Show me your love by, fixing the dishwasher or things like that, where he's very much physical touch, holding hands and kissing and things like that. The difficulty is that when a person's love language is different, you have to stop and assess the situation and try to say, okay, is he trying to tell me that he loves me? Yes, in this situation, he is. If he doesn't do this for me, does that mean he doesn't love me? No, it doesn't, because that's my love language, not his. And it also can bring forth really good moments to communicate with your partner. So again, it's really cliche, but it has informed a lot of my decision making.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's another very popular one. I'm sure a lot of people.
Oh yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
I'm mixing things up again, of course. I have to talk about Boy: Tales from Childhood by Roald Dahl. Of course, everybody knows Roald Dahl. I've talked about it before. He's the Welsh-born Norwegian author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The BFG, Matilda, James and the Giant Peach. A few. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's basically a memoir, but it's written for kids. I mean, it's, ideally, probably like a 10-year-old. Adults can read it. It's super fun. And so it's basically about his formative years, kind of like from birth to like about 18 when he gets his first real job. I've been an Anglophile since forever, and I blame Roald Dahl for that. I love British stuff, and I think this book really started it. It's a fun book. It's funny. It'll make you laugh, but it does include kind of the warts of growing up as well. Like his father was in a car accident, and this Roald Dahl passed away in the 1990s. His father was born in 1850. So we're talking about some of the first cars. His father was in a car accident. The doctor that came upon the scene was drunk, and he misdiagnosed his father's broken arm, a fractured arm, as a dislocated shoulder. And so he grabbed his father's arm and was pulling on it and trying to put it back into its socket. And his father ended up getting his arm amputated. So it's not all joy and happiness, but the joy obviously far outweighs it. My favorite thing is he would talk about going into town. He went to school at a boarding school growing up. And so him and his friends would walk into town and go to the candy store. And he talks about just the candy store being the most magical place in the world. They had to buy them by weight. So they'd have a couple pennies and they'd buy candy. And the lady that ran the candy store had the most disgusting hands. She never washed them. And so they'd watch her with like her dirty nails going in there and like plucking up candy and stuff like that. And obviously, his love of candy comes through. He's fully open with that's what inspired him to write Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He dreamed of becoming a chocolate inventor when he grew up. So, just the stories of kind of the early 1900s. Growing up in England, I was just like, wow, I like this place. This is where I want to go. And it's continued to today.
And you were able to visit there once.
I was. Yeah, and I'm going to go back someday for sure.
Well, I'm just now realizing that my 3 titles for today are all fiction. So I don't know what that says about me, but it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah. The next book that it's one of those that I can't recommend enough to people. I've listened to it a ton of times. I've read it a ton of times. It's just one that I can't get enough of because it truly, well, I'll talk about it first and then I'll kind of go into it, but it's The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. It's that one of those books that sold over 1 million copies. It's the only novel to win both the Newbery Medal and the Carnegie Medal. It's just this modern children's classic, but it was so unexpected when I read it. And I don't know if it was like at that time in my life where I read it for like a college class the first time. And it was just like the stress of college or just, like when you're forced to read stuff for homework that I kind of felt like I was losing the joy of reading, that it was just like, oh, I feel like these classes are taking it away from me. But, there's, the little, Nobody Owens, like the little baby that goes into the graveyard, is the only surviving member of his family after the man named Jack, stabs his family and, that he's raised by the graveyard's ghostly residents. Like it was just such a different plot that I didn't expect. I mean, I should have known being Neil Gaiman that it was, going to be outside the box and absolutely wonderful, but, I just had no idea. And just that, they name him Nobody Owens and that he was named like that because he looks like nobody but himself. And just kind of the whole story is phenomenal and everybody should read it. But, that it just, like can a boy raised by ghosts face the wonders and terrors of living in the worlds of both the living and the dead? I still don't know how, Neil Gaiman made it both darkly humorous, but super emotional and moving at the same time. And, being a middle-aged reader's book too, that I was just like, what? Like, what am I reading? Like this is for kids. Yeah. Like, what am I reading? This is great. But it just really reminded me like the power and magic that can be found in a great children's story. And just kind of reminded me like, okay, reading is such this powerful thing and you love it. Like, even though you have to do these other, readings, like you can still go and enjoy a book and it's okay. And it's great. And it's a great escape. So The Graveyard Book.
I read that one in one sitting.
Yeah.
I read that one on my mom's couch. I vividly remember reading it.
Yeah.
I finished it in one sitting.
I know I went all over the place with that, but I was like, because I had like a page of notes of like, oh my God, there's so many things I want to say about it. But I'm like, okay, I can't talk for 15 minutes about my love for the Graveyard Book.
Well, I believe it's loosely based off the Jungle Book.
Yep.
So it's kind of taking that story.
Ah,
and
that makes
yeah.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It kind of takes some cues from that for sure.
Right.
Cool. Okay, I got another switching things up again. My last one is Love Warrior by Glennon Doyle, and I actually just read her most recent book, Untamed, and so it kind of reminded me how much I loved Love Warrior, and it's just she just has this way about being so honest and raw and open that it's like she's giving you permission to be vulnerable, and that it's okay to be yourself and have pain and not be perfect and tell people about that pain. And it's really like a survivor story. And she did that again in Untamed, and with a whole new, like, her life changed so dramatically from this book to that book, but she did the same thing again and just said, okay, yeah, a lot of the things I said in Love Warrior aren't even what they are anymore, but they were then, and that's how I felt. And so she just puts it all out there, and she really empowers not even just women, just people to be vulnerable and show that to other people. And I just really loved it. So
That's great.
Sounds like a
Anne
good
has a
one.
lovely little story and compliment here. One of my many reasons that I love the library is that when we moved to Arizona in the summer before I began 5th grade, my mom found the little library in Scottsdale, and reading Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys, Sue Barton, Student Nurse, etc. saved my life. And then she says, eager to see you in person. You've got the best laughs in town. That is so sweet.
Aw.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Anne.
much, Anne.
Oh, thank you, Anne.
Okay, guys, I'm calling an audible. I'm not going to do the one that I said I was going to do because I can't not. Guys, it's Lord of the Rings. I can't have a book discussion about things that changed my life and not mention Lord of the Rings. Not only has it been a part of my life for the majority of my life, it's given me, I mean, these stories are about friendship and forgiveness and the all-consuming nature of the lust for power and how that power can corrupt. It deals with death and immortality, fathers and sons, the families that you choose, the devastations of war. Growing up, major theme is nature versus technology, and industrialization, loss and death, and all of those wonderful things. But for me, what it means to me is that it does not matter how small or insignificant you think that you are. With love and goodness on your side, you have the strength to face anything, no matter how scary it may seem. And the fact that I am a hobbit. So.
They're such good books. I mean, you can't go wrong recommending that anytime.
I love Middle Earth.
Oh,
Yeah.
love,
I had mentioned I had another title in mind, but yeah, Lord of the Rings changed my life.
I mean, you all have no idea how much Jessie has been agonizing over whether or not she was going to talk about Lord of the Rings.
I'm glad you did it.
I'm glad you gave in.
Thank you. I feel so much better.
Well, Claire had a Lord of the Rings themed wedding.
That is so cool. Oh, I bet that was beautiful.
My husband would have allowed it. If my husband would have allowed it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and I'm surprised I don't have a son named Aragorn. But anyway.
Well, I am gonna go back once again to the kids. And I think probably if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, I think it might catch the 70s as well. But the book series, The Great Illustrated Classics, might sound very familiar to you. And if not, maybe this beautiful. It's a whole series of books. And they all look like this with the red lettering, and then they've got the red letter on the binding. I just consumed these when I was little. I actually read, I know I read The Journey to the Center of the Earth. They are just basically They did 70 of these, and they are exactly what they sound like. They are classic books that they have rewritten for kids so that they're more palatable and a faster read for kids. They did like Time Machine, Dracula, Count of Monte Cristo, Moby Dick, just everything you can think of. And I just think that these were part of the reason that really got me into literature. I ended up getting my degree in English literature, and I firmly believe that this had I was like, wow, I do like classic literature. Never mind that this is not the actual book, but it got me into it. This, I also have to go slightly off the path just for a moment. I have to give a small shout out to the TV show that just is the best TV show ever if you were a child, Wishbone. Wishbone also played a part in me just loving classic books. It was during the 1990s. It was on for a couple of years. It starred a Jack Russell Terrier named Wishbone. And he told classic stories in each episode by playing one of the characters. He taught me the Odyssey by playing Odysseus. I learned Don Quixote, and he was Sancho Panza. So I had to bring that up, even though it's not a book. It definitely affected my life.
Sounds like
I had to bring down the comment because it was covering your
I
face.
can still sing it. I can still sing the theme song as well.
Yeah, Adam also loved these books, and I know for a fact I had Treasure Island. I know I did. So, yeah,
They are one of those that, like,
hey, we got somebody.
what?
Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
We've got somebody, first time commenter. As a homeschool mom, my students read these, and one of the reasons they really love them is because I let them color the black and white illustrations themselves.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yes, it made the book their own. And also,
she knew you were going to mention Wishbone.
She loved that.
We must be on the same brain wavelength, Phyllis.
Now I feel like I need to go find the old episodes of Wishbone and relive my childhood.
I love so much. I love them.
My image is showing Wishbone. I'd never heard of it before.
Well, you should go find him because
You will love it.
I heard of it. I heard of it, but I don't know if I watched it.
Yeah.
It's on PBS, so you can't go wrong. Good PBS stuff.
Right.
So I am going to round us out with probably my favorite classic of all time, probably by my favorite classics author. That's kind of a loaded statement, but we're going to have to go with Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It's the first classic that I ever checked out from my hometown library. It's one of those stories where I can still remember the plot years afterwards. I mean, I've reread it plenty of times, but I can remember each and every single thing that happens. Probably can even quote some of the dialogue or some of the scenes by heart. Everybody I think just has, one or two of those stories that are just like, it sticks with you. It just is something you remember, but I loved how witty and spirited Elizabeth Bennet was, especially, for during the time that the book is set. You can't help but be charmed by her. And don't get me started on Mr. Darcy. I had a crush on him for years. I was, even though we, totally.
I'm sure you're the only person in history,
I think so,
who's ever had a crush on Mr. Darcy. Yeah. So
he hasn't,
definitely alone there
for a ton of other movies and books or anything like that.
Right.
Totally. But I mean, pretty much it probably is, arguably Austen's most popular novel, but it just. Her genius just shines through, and in my opinion, it's one of the best romances of all time because it doesn't just follow this nice, neat path. I mean, it does, still have the whole fairy tale ending, but it really shows how foolishly we can get wrapped up in just judging people by first impressions. And I thought, reading that, I didn't expect it, and it was a very refreshing thing to read for the first time. Of course, that then led me to devouring Jane Austen's other writing, like Persuasion, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, and all the rest. Mansfield Park, Northanger Abbey, I could go on. But of course, my collector's edition, get it in the camera here, of her 7 novels, complete with fancy ribbon page marker and gold pages, has made each and every single one of my many, many moves and is always within reach on my bookshelf. So it's just one of those books.
Nice. I could
Nice.
talk Jane Austen all day. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I could definitely talk Jane Austen. But I won't, because that's not what this one's about.
Yeah,
And-
another episode.
yes, and we need to wrap up because we're going a little over, but when you talk about life-changing things, it gets a little heavy. So
Well, and everyone that's in the comments section has great stuff to say.
yes,
too,
great
so.
stuff. So
Loved it.
yes.
Loved it.
So thank you everyone for joining us again today. As always, please keep sharing your thoughts or comments. You can always also send us a message here on Facebook. We have an email too that if you need to email us, it's questions@siouxcitylibrary.org. And then be sure to come back next Tuesday. We're going to be talking about character-driven books. So that should be a fun one too. So until then, keep reading, Sioux City.